I had no self-confidence. I was constantly bullied in school. Like, I was that target. I was that kid in school that had long, greasy hair, smelly, dirty clothes, because I tried to put a ward around me so people would leave me alone. I was born in a small little town in Carson City, Michigan, to a single mother with a brother that's 19 months older than me. We had a relatively large family when I was just a little kid. And we used to go there all the time. It was, as far back as I can remember, it was just me, my mother, and my brother. I met my dad like 3 times in my life. And he would come in, hang out with my mom, give us some money and tell us to go get ice cream or whatever. And so I don't really remember much of him. But I remember being 4 or 5. I don't really remember 4 or 5, but somewhere around there. I remember going to grandma's house all the time. We would go there for every holiday. We'd go there a couple times a week. And my grandma lived in this cute little house on the corner of town of Middleton, Michigan. And it was my grandma, my grandpa, and my Uncle Mike that lived in this house. And we would go there all the time. And me and my brother would play in the yard, and my Uncle Mike was so cool, right? He was 19, 20 years old. I don't really know exactly what he was, but he always used to build like these model cars. And I distinctly recall the A-Team van from the show The A-Team. And I was mesmerized by the guy, right? He had this golden Thunderbird or T-Bird Firebird car that was just sweet. He had like the car phone in it when it first came out, and I was just enamored with the guy. And we would go there on holidays. All the family would come. There's cousins, there's aunts, there's uncles, and I just remember it being a pretty happy environment. And when I was 5 years old, that's when I first found out he had an Atari in his up in his room, and his room was upstairs. And I went up there one day, and I was just mesmerized by this little video game. I'm like, this is dope. And there was a pole position was the game. And I remember playing it when I was 5, and then that's when he started to molest me. I was there playing the video game, and I remember him sitting me down on his lap. And yeah, that's when the molestation started. And of course, it came in with the threats of, don't say anything. This is our little secret. If you say anything, everybody's going to get hurt. I'll have to hurt the whole family. And I don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. And so I zoned out whenever I would go up to his room. And I mean, this is happening a couple times. Every time we go over there now, after the first time, it's happening. And I would go up and I would just zone out in the video game, and I'm not paying any attention to what's actually happening. I'm just kind of blocking it out. I know something's not right, but at the same time, I'm this scared 5-year-old boy. I don't want anybody to get hurt or get into trouble. And for some reason, it became this thing. Not long after that, my mother's boyfriend, Daryl Hall, started to molest me. And not long after that, a family friend named Tim Klinger. I don't have a problem calling these assholes out by name. Tim Klinger started to molest me when we would go over to his house. And all of a sudden, I found myself from the age of 5 and onward, I'm getting molested like 2, 3, 4 times a week, nonstop. And as a kid, I don't understand what's going on. I mean, I'm not really cognizant of what's happening. But when I was 7 years old, and this is now constant in my life, my brother and I were at a baseball field that was right behind our house connected to the high school. And we saw a bunch of kids at a Catholic school, and they were having a little party or whatever it was, and we weren't allowed to go because we weren't Catholics. And when it was over, we broke into the church. We went around the church to the backside in the basement windows, and we tried to open the window and it broke. And so we went inside and we grabbed up some playing cards and some pudding cups and some other stuff, and took our stuff and went across back to the dugout, and we were in there eating the pudding and playing with the cards, and all of a sudden the cop rolled up. And I remember he put us in handcuffs and drove us back to our house. And that was the first time I got arrested. I was 7 years old. It was 1988. And looking back I believe that they arrested us and charged us because my mother was like this big anti-government, anti-police protester in our small little town. And it just made no sense to me why now, looking back, why you charge a 7-year-old with a felony, but they charged me with larceny, breaking and entering with intent to commit larceny from a building. And I got 60 days probation. It's the first time I ever saw Judge Skinner, the Honorable Judge Skinner in Montcalm County, Michigan. And he gave me 60 days probation.
Soft White Underbelly is about giving people a space to tell their stories, even when these stories challenge what we think we know. Ground News shows us different perspectives in the media, which is why Ground News is a perfect sponsor for my channel. In a world where algorithms censor much of the information we receive, some of the most important stories get missed from our news feeds. Ground News highlights local news from around the world, giving you an on-the-ground perspective that national coverage might miss. The app and website empowers you to form your own opinions by presenting you with every article published on any news story worldwide. My favorite part of the app is the data it gives you on each news source as you read it, such as where it leans on the political spectrum, a factuality rating indicating how subjective their printed reporting tends to be, and who funds it. I particularly like their blind spot feed, dedicated to showing you news stories that are underrepresented in the mainstream media. You can check this all out by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link below. It's easy to forget how much bias can shape the reality we live in. And in a world where our attention is constantly being fought over, my Vantage Plan easily helps me keep up with more important stories slipping through the cracks. So I encourage you to check them out at ground.news/SWU. Subscribe through my link or download the mobile app and enter promo code SWU to save 40% off their Vantage Plan. And by subscribing or even gifting it to someone you know, you're helping hold the media accountable and helping my channel directly. Thank you for watching.
And, you know, the ass whooping from mom, the grounding, the probation, all of a sudden, nobody was around. Like, Daryl left, Tim wouldn't come around, we couldn't go to grandma's house, or we didn't go to grandma's house, or for whatever reason, I wasn't getting molested. And when I got off probation, all of a sudden it's like the doors opened up and everybody just came back and I started getting molested again. And so I went out and I think I stole like a 3-wheel bike from somebody in a trailer park and I broke it. But I got arrested again and charged again with destruction of property and larceny and put back on probation. And when I got put back on probation, the guys went away. And so I found this little system of when I would get into trouble, I'd catch an ass whooping from mom, I would get grounded or whatever, I would go to the courts, all the attention was on me and you're on probation, but all the dudes went away. And so I kept doing it. And it was like every 3 months I'm back in the courtroom. And the judge is constantly like, next time, young man, next time, young man. And this was the pattern for probably the next 3 years until I turned 10. And when I was 10, I don't even recall why it happened, but something bad happened and I just broke down and told my mom about my uncle, that he was molesting me. And that's when everything went to shit. Everything fell apart. We didn't go to grandma's house anymore. When we would go over there, but just not with anybody else. My uncle was arrested, ultimately was sent to prison, and it just became, I realized now how fucked up my family was, right? Like, we would go over on holidays, we'd go the next day. The rest of the family came over and they blamed me. They said it was my fault, that I was lying or that I somehow made this stuff up and I got our Uncle Mike put in prison. And one of the craziest parts is that while we would go over to the holidays, and when you read my book, Hey White Boy, Conversations of Redemption, there's a lot of things that I missed because after the book went to press, I was laying in bed with my wife and I called my mother. And I talked to her and she had said, well, you only put 4 guys in that book. What about this guy? And what about this guy? And my wife's jaw hit the floor like, are you kidding me? I had blocked out like 2 other guys that had molested me as a kid. Like I completely forgot about it, didn't put it in the book. And then she tells me, well, you also said in there that your Uncle Mike started molesting you at 5. he actually started to molest you when you were 3. And we found out about it. And her mom and dad, my grandparents, swept it under the rug, got him mental health counseling, and you were not allowed to go upstairs anymore. And I haven't really talked to my mother since then, but why would I even go back to the house? Why would you take your kid back to that house? And then I look back at it and I'm thinking, how do you allow this to happen to your child, where 6 dudes are just constantly molesting me my whole fucking life? And so when he went to prison and then the whole family fell apart and there was no more of that, we would go over there after the holidays and this guy would call the house and they would put me on the phone with him to talk to my Uncle Mike while he's in prison and it's the holidays. I'm like a 10, 11-year-old kid and you're putting me on the phone with this guy to ask him how he's doing, to hear how he's doing. And he's telling me sorry. And he's like, fuck you, man. And it was so traumatically for me because now I'm like, I have this sexual propensity at 11 years old and 12 years old. Like I'm looking at porn and I'm just this distraught kid. And I was so inverted because of all the damage that was done to me. I had no self-confidence. I was constantly bullied in school. Like I was that target. I was that kid in school that had long, greasy hair, smelly, dirty clothes because I tried to put a ward around me so people would leave me alone.
Did you have a dad?
No. My mom had boyfriends in and out. The closest thing I had to a dad was a guy named Al Bauer. Closest thing that I had to a dad. But it was just, my life was shit, man. Like going to school was horrible. Out of school was horrible. And I was just this really reclusive kid and music was my savior. My mom used to have this really badass tape box and I would listen to all, and it was just an eclectic collection of music and music was my escape. So I would like hide in the closet and just listen to music. But I kept getting into trouble. And even after my uncle went to prison, there was still, I told on Tim probably when I was 11 and a half. Daryl just kind of disappeared out of the frame. But these other guys, they were still there. And I don't even really recollect much of it. That's like the trauma of it just kind of vanished, I guess. But I kept getting into trouble. That was one thing that stayed consistent. I was assaulting people, which didn't make much sense to me because I was not the tough kid. I would steal all the time. Like I was a little kleptomaniac. I walk into the store, I'm stealing something. I break into stuff all the time. And when I was 12 years old, my brother and I stole my mother's car. We wanted to get away from life so bad that we decided we were going to steal my mother's car and we were going to go to Chicago. And so we stole my mom's Escort and we made it out of the state. We got arrested in Hodgkins, Illinois at like 5 a.m. And that was the last time I saw my brother until I was 21. They took my brother away. They sent him to juvie, and I didn't see him. And my brother was my whole world, right? My brother was a tough kid. You know, he had a good reputation in town, and he was kind of my protector. If anybody messed with me, he'd kick their ass. And I worshiped my brother. And he went away, and it was just me and my mom. And then my mom started just going through boyfriend after boyfriend, and I started getting into drugs and alcohol. I started to drink. I started to smoke weed. I started to have sex. And that's really where 12, 13, my life started to expand into these things where I started to distance myself from my mother. And I kept getting into trouble. I stayed on probation, but the judge was always, next time. And he never took me away, just probation. And when I was 15, a friend of mine, Tim, and I were walking outside of Carson City in the middle of the night, and we broke into a house, looted some stuff, and took some bikes out of the yard, and rode the bikes into Carson City, the town. We went through the hospital parking lot, stole some stuff out of vehicles, and we got caught by the cops, and they arrested us and charged us with stolen bicycles, having stolen cell phones, B&Es. And this was the time the judge said, you know what, I'm done with you. I'm going to bind you over to adult court. And my first time going into adult court, the judge he said, you know what, I'm not even going to play with you. You have a horrible record. You're done. And he sent me to prison. And I remember sitting there at sentencing. I thought I was just going to get probation again. And my mom was in the courtroom, and I was there with my lawyer, and 24 to 48 months or 60 months in the Michigan Department of Corrections. And I didn't even know what that meant. Right? And I look at my lawyer. I'm like, what is that? And he said, he just sent you to prison. I'm like prison? He's like, yeah. And I went back to the county jail, and my mom came to visit. And in that visit, she says, I'm leaving state with my boyfriend, Ed. You're going to have to go kind of walk this path and figure this out. And that's the last time I talked to my father. I called my father from the county jail. I don't even remember how I had his number, but I called him and said, Dad, they're sending me to prison. And he said, good luck. Don't gamble, don't borrow. And that was it. And that's when I really started to walk a path all by myself. And it was rough. I stayed in the county jail for about 6 months waiting transfer. And in February of 1998, they sent me to Riverside, which is the quarantine for Michigan. And I remember going in there for the first time. It was so fucking scary, right? Like there's these long hallways and all these gangsters and just, it was just the most terrifying thing in the world. And I was scared shitless, man. I had long hair. I was 170 pounds, skinny white kid. And I was just like, oh my God. And the doors opened up for chow. When they ran chow lines, the doors would open every 5 minutes during chow. So you could go out, go to chow, come back. And I remember I was probably 5 days in, 6 days in. My bunkie jumps down and he goes out. And I thought I'd catch the next door. I'm down, the doors open up, and I stand up, and 2 dudes come running in. And he's got this big, nasty knife. And he grabbed me by the neck, stuck it in my neck, and he said, you know what this is, man? You fight, you scream, you die. And for the next 15 minutes, they savagely raped the shit out of me, man. And I know that it was 15 minutes because the door opened and closed 3 times. And I that's what I remember in that moment was I was on the bunk and I had this bar in my throat. I'm like, dude, I can't fucking do anything because I can't breathe. And they had this knife in my face and they're just going to town. And I just remember the door. And I've been so traumatized in my life that I was kind of able to just zone out, right? And go back to my Uncle Mike when I'm playing the video game and just zone out. And then next thing you know, they're gone. And I remember laying there on the bed thinking, I can't do this. Like this is going to be my life if I don't do something. And I sat up, I cleaned myself off, and I'm crying, I'm in pain, and I look up, and I got a bunch of little pencils that are on the desk, and I grabbed them up, and I took my shoestring off, and I tied it around the shoestring, and when the door opened again, they were over by their door. Well, one of them was, and I walked across the hall, and I was just really calm, nonchalant, like, hey, man, I just want you to know that I'm not going to say anything. And I remember him looking at me like, fuck you. And I started to stab the shit out of this guy in the face with these pens. I lost it. And he fell down and I ran back into the cell. I undid the pencils and washed my hands in the sink, washed all the pencils off, put them back, quickly put my shoe thing, and you could hear the police coming. Here comes the keys jingling, and my adrenaline's pumping. I'm fucking shaking, and I'm like, fuck. And they came and they got this guy up. And the damage wasn't that significant. It's just little pencils, right? But there was a lot of blood. And they cart him off down the hall, and then I hear the other guy screaming, CO, you gotta come get me. You gotta come get me. He's gonna get me too. And then you see them grab him out of the cell, and he goes walking by. And I got up on the bunk, and I just laid there. I'm like, fuck, this is it, man. Like, I'm going to get charged with something. Like, my adrenaline's just going crazy. And they never came. They never came back. And I don't know why they didn't come back. I guess nobody told. Nobody said anything. And I remember the next morning, the doors opened up for breakfast. I laid there all night just thinking about, it was just crazy. And the doors opened up for breakfast, and I went out, and you could feel something different in the air, right? There was something palpable in the, like the looks were fear and respect. Nobody saw what those two had done to me during Chow. They just saw me come out and do that. And I even got some hand daps, and I'm like, in my mind, I knew like, this is what I have to do to survive. Like, if I'm going to make it through this is what I'm going to have to be. And the next couple of weeks went relatively quiet. I went through all the processes, but then we got put on the bus and transferred out to the actual facility after quarantine. And the guy that was in the seat with me is this Mexican cat named Lalo. And he was like, bro, what you did in there that was solid, man. Like, we're going to be bunkies, because they got a sheet that tells you who you're going to be bunkies with. We're going to be bunkies, man. And I'm just glad I got a solid ass cat to be a bunkie with. And when we get to the new facility, he's telling me all about the gang that he's in. And I had no experiences with gangs whatsoever. I mean, I'm from the country. And I thought, man, I need that. So how do I get in? How do I do that? And he said, you're a solid ass cat. Don't worry, I got you. I'm going to introduce you to our boss, to the leader. So we went out to the yard, and he introduced me to the guy. And the guy said, I heard you were down as hell. And if you want in, you got to put in some work. And here's a knife. There's the opposite side. Go put in some work. And I didn't even hesitate. And I mean, I'm like this really soft, kind, quiet kid, right? I don't like pain. I don't like people hurting. It hurts me to see that. But at this point, like, I'm just numb. And I went over and I stabbed this guy. And that's what I became. I got inundated into the gang life. And in a few short months, I cut the hair off and got a fade, started to get a bunch of tattoos, and I started to embody the role. I knew, as scared as I was inside, I can't show that. I have to be this really mean, vicious, and tough dude if I'm going to survive this shit. And the next 2 years at Thumb Correctional Facility were filled with violence and learning gang literature and gang signs and handshakes and politics and fights all the time. And then they opened up this new facility, the first ever youth facility, privatized youth facility by a company called Wackenhut. And it was in Baldwin, Michigan. And if you were under 20, you're going to this facility. And shit, that became a nightmare. We go to this facility. We're on the second ride-in. The first ride-in was like kitchen workers, laundry workers. We come in on the second ride-in, and this place is staffed by corrections officers that are not equipped to handle this. And within a month, this place became a war zone, right? There were stabbings, beatings, assaults, rapes. And there's nobody over 20 except for staff. It's all kids. But they're all seasoned criminals. They've all been in prison for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And it was a war zone. And I got lost in this warfare mentality. And we started to assault the police, the COs, because they weren't MDOC employees. So if we hit them, we don't get a new charge. If you touch a corrections officer in the MDOC, you're getting a new case. You do it here, you go to the hole for 7 days because they don't know what they're doing. So we started to fuck these COs up. And it got so out of hand that they completely shut the facility down, locked it down for like a month, and then it became COs versus inmates and inmates versus inmates. There was a time I didn't know if I was going to get killed by a CO or an inmate. It was just in and out of segregation. We're getting gassed all the time. And I'm like, I remember being in solitary confinement, and I was just so angry standing at the door, like when they're doing mail, and they come by the mail, and you're just sitting there, and you have nobody. I had nobody. I was completely alone in the world, and they would pass by with, and I mean, I don't even get a fucking receipt from medical or nothing. And I felt so empty, and I would rather hurt than feel that feeling. So I would cover up my cell, and I'd cover the windows, and I would threaten to kill myself. And they have to bring the CERT team down, and then they gas you, and they open the doors, and they come in, they rush you, and they hog tie you, and they 5-point you to your bunk, where they put a shackle on each ankle, shackle on each wrist, and they put a strap across your neck, and you're just strapped to the bunk for fucking days, man. You got to shit yourself. You got to piss yourself. They open the doors. They throw powdered soap on you and spray you down. And it just became like, it was like feeling that was so much better than this emptiness that was happening in my life. I mean, they would hog tie us. They got so mad at me for getting gassed all the time and making them do this. They would take me out to the dog kennels out back, and they would throw you in there shackled in the middle of winter, just your boxers, and dump a bucket of water on you and leave you there for hours. I lost this tooth because a CO came out and kicked me in the face to see if I was alive. And it was just fucking traumatic, right? And then when I turned 20, a week before I turned 20, they rode me out of that facility and sent me back to the MDOC. And it was crazy. I went to level 4 St. Louis, and my bunkie was a guy named Keithon Green, and his nickname was Terrible T. He's one of the founding members of a Detroit street gang from the 70s called the Young Boys Incorporated, the YBI. And me and this guy got along so good. And this guy started to school me about, don't be such a hot-headed gangster. You got to be smart. You got to be slick. You got to be smooth. And he really kind of curated me into this gangbanger, this criminal. And when I was 21, they opened the doors. I thought I was going to do the rest of my life in prison. I just knew at some point I was either going to get killed or I was going to kill somebody or something, and I was going to spend the rest of my life there. But December 13th, it was a Friday, 2002, they $75 and 3 condoms and no parole, no probation, no oversight, and opened the doors. And my mother and my brother were there. That's the first time that I got to see my brother in the free world since I was 12. And I don't know, something was completely different in me. Like, I didn't give a shit about anything or anybody. I had no feeling. I was so callous on the inside. I had wore this mask for so long that I became that guy, and I didn't know how to just turn it off. I didn't know how to just shut the switch off when I walked out. And I immediately started robbing people. I had no fear. I had no conscience. I had no, I don't know. My goal was to be like the next Scarface. I felt like the world owed me something. I used to say karma fucked me first, right? And so that was the justification that I would use to do things, to commit crimes, to hurt people. And, karma's been fucking me since I was 5. Like, I didn't do anything wrong, and I've been abused my whole life. So I must have a green light to just go do whatever I want. And I got a couple of women pregnant. And then 20 months later, I got charged with 15 more felonies. My brother and I were breaking into houses with a buddy of ours and stealing shit and stealing guns and running guns. And we got caught again on September 2nd, 2004, and charged with 15 more felonies. And it kind of shattered me because my brother told on me. And I had gotten away when the police came because, I took off. And he told on me. And it just I was like, why? That just doesn't make no sense. Anyway, they charged us with 15 more felonies. I get sentenced to 12 more years. Now I know my life's over. And I go back to prison, and it's the same, right back in. All my gang buddies are there. They see me. It's much the same, except now I've got this kid. I've got 2 kids, but my youngest son's mother at the time, she was like, fuck you, man, you're worthless, I'm leaving. And she lived in Arizona. But my oldest son's mother, Nikki, I had met her through my brother Frank. My brother used to date her sister Chelsea for a long time, and she was like his little sister. And her and I hit it off really good, and we had this kid, and now she hated Frank. and my brother. And she had took me back when I got sentenced back to 12 years in prison. She said, we can do this. I'll wait. I'll go to school, whatever. And she was bringing my kid up to see me all the time. So I started to develop a relationship with my oldest son. And my brother had gotten sentenced to 2 years. I got sentenced to 12 years. And while we were in the first year, they brought a bunch more charges. And I remember getting a letter from my brother that said, I saw the parole board and they stayed off my decision because of these pending charges. Can you help me out? And so I went in and I took a plea bargain and I pled guilty to all of the charges and said I was by myself, that he wasn't there, he wasn't involved. And they dropped all the charges against him.
Why'd you do that?
I just felt protective of my brother. Like I've always been, since we got out when I was 21, you could not look at this guy wrong. If you did, I would slap you, I would assault you. What you can't. I worshipped my brother, right? And
he was older.
He was. He's 19 months older. But there was such a dynamic shift when I got out when I was 21. He was no longer the big bad brother, right? Like I was way tougher, way meaner, way bigger. Like the roles kind of switched, and I just kind of took a protective role of him. And so I went and I pled guilty to these charges, and they just ran my time concurrent. I didn't get any more time. I just took him off, and he got parole. And I remember he sent a letter, and he said, I have to parole to a homeless shelter. I don't have any options. And I called Nikki and said, I need you to let Frank come parole to the house. He can help you with the bills. He can help raise Caden, be a good uncle. She didn't want to, but she reluctantly was like, all right. So I remember the day he got out, I called, I talked to him, and then that was the last time that I talked to him, her, or my son for like 3 months. And I called every day. And I had no idea what the hell was going on. And that's all I had. And so to go from calling every day to nothing, like, what the fuck happened? What's going on? I don't know what's happening. And I'm freaking out. And finally, a few months down the road, I keep calling. I'm always trying. And she answers the phone, and she said, I'm so sorry, but you're going to hate me. And I said, well, why would I hate you? I don't hate you. She's like, I got pregnant. I said, well, I don't expect you to be a nun, right? Like, I'm doing 12 years in prison. I don't expect you to be a nun. Somebody knocked you up, whatever. Caden will have a brother, and we'll raise him as our own. And she said, no, you're going to hate me because it's Frank's. and that was the moment that I lost all faith in being a good human being. I thought, what the fuck is the point, right? Like, I worshiped this guy. I took time for this guy. I got this guy out. I would have killed for this guy. And this is what you do? Now you take my son from me. You take the only thing that I have that's keeping me somewhat sane in this time, and he took it, and I lost it. I snapped. And that was it. I didn't talk to them for years after that. And not too long after that, some dumb young gangbanger coming in decided he wanted to try to make a name for himself, and he ran into my cell and robbed all my shit while I was at work. And I took all my anger out on this kid. I quickly found out who he was. My gang buddies came back quickly, and they're like, that guy. And I assaulted this guy to a level that still disturbs me to this day. They had to gas me to get me off of him. And they drugged me to down to the hole. And I remember they were dragging me down the hallway, and I got blood and pepper spray all over my face and snot, and I can't breathe. And they take me down to the end of the cell. They throw me in the cell. They close the door. They take the shackles off. I immediately go to the sink, and I'm splashing water on my face. And then I hear this guy, hey, white boy, what'd you do, man? Hey, white boy, come talk to me. And I cuss him out, right? And I'm just like, fuck you, man. You don't know me, bro. Shut up. Don't talk to me. And this guy constantly is calling over to me. Hey, white boy, we're at the end of the cell. We're the only ones down there. Everybody else is down that way. You can't really see anybody. Constantly calling me. And I'm in the window just cussing him out, calling him everything I can think of. And it just goes on for 4, 5, 6 days, something like that. And they came in, they grabbed me up and took me down to SEC, which is the Security Classification Committee after you get found guilty on your ticket. And they said, this guy's in a coma, and if he dies, you're going to spend the rest of your life in prison. As it stands, you're going to be here for at least 60 months. So go back up and sit down, and we'll see you in 5 years. And I was like, damn, 5 years in the hole. That sucks. So took me back to the cell, and, hey, white boy, what happened? I'm like, God damn. So I go to the door, and I'm like, what, dude? What do you want, man? What do you want? He's like, I want to talk to you. What? What do you want to talk about? And he says, I'll never forget it. He says, why are you so angry? I said, what the fuck kind of question is that? I said, why are you so angry? I said, because I'm in the hole. My life sucks. I'm in prison. You won't shut the fuck up. There's a lot of reasons why I'm angry. And he said, no, man, that's why you're mad. That's why you're mad. Mad is a surface emotion. It's temporary. And you're a very angry young man. Just need a minute. Yeah, he said, you're angry. Anger cuts to your soul. And I couldn't answer him. I was like, man, fuck you. I walked away and I started pacing my cell. And I couldn't shake the question, right? Thanks. I couldn't shake the question. Why are you so angry? It took me a little bit, but I came to the realization that I'm like, why the fuck am I so angry? I'm an angry dude, right? Like, God damn it, I am so angry. And I came to the realization, dude, I've been a victim my whole life. My whole life. And there's nothing good in this world, right? Like, this is what my life is worth. And I decided to fuck it, break down and tell him. So I told him everything about my life. And he sat there and he listened, and I told him everything about my life. I didn't tell him about the raping, but told him everything else. And when I was done, he had this kind of so what demeanor, like, and? I'm like, well, fuck you, man. What did I mean? What am I even talking to you for? Like, what the hell, man? So I leave, we come back, and this started this transformation for me. This guy became my mentor. He shot me over a book. He said, I want you to read something. He sent me over this book by Viktor Frankl. It's Man's Search for Meaning. And I'd always been a really strong reader. I sucked at everything else, but I was a strong reader, a strong speller. And I read through this book. And I mean, when I first saw it, I'm like, what is this, another prison gospel book? Sure, you know, it's got the little candle and the flame, and there's another cover on there with a bird on a barbed wire. And I'm like, yeah, okay, it's another prison book. And one of the first things that stuck out to me was the line, suffering ceases to be suffering the moment you give it a meaning. And I read this book. And all of a sudden, like, I feel again, right? Like, I'm feeling guilt. I'm feeling shame. I'm like, what the fuck? I don't do that. Karma fucked me first. I'm this hard stoic. I don't feel. I don't care. I don't give a fuck about anything. But here's this Jewish man that had a beautiful life. He worked hard, and you know, one day Nazis kick his door in and they take him all to Auschwitz, and he watches his friends get exterminated and tormented and tortured and experimented on. And the whole time he's in there like trying to make people feel better, trying to inspire people. And he said, when we can no longer control our environment, we're forced to control this, or we're challenged to control our mind. And it's shown this big ass mirror in my face. Like, dude, you're a piece of shit. Like, yeah, you got molested, you got abused, you've been beaten up and bullied and maybe even raped and but it's nothing compared to what this guy went through. And you used it as an excuse to cause so much hurt and pain and destruction in the world. And I couldn't bear that shame. And Mallory Bay sends me this book. It's called The L Factor, the likability factor. He said, read this book. So I go through this book and I'm like, what is this, a joke? What are you trying to make me feel even worse? Like, this was a book about personality, how you can become more likable. And as I go through this book, I'm like, dude, this is just showing me that I'm the most worthless human being on the planet. Like, that I'm not worthy of being liked or loved. And he pointed out, you're looking at it from the wrong perspective, right? Like, at this point, I think I'm 27 years old. He's like, you're going to get out when you're 35. There are so many people that start life at 40. You have so much life left and ahead of you. And it's your choice right now if you want to remain the angry, hurtful person that you are, or learn from this book that's telling you how to be a likable person. Your personality is your choice. And I sank into this fucking massive depression because I started to go back and think about all the fucking people I hurt. I realized, like, I don't even know half of them. I can never go back and make things right. Right? For the little boy who comes home from school and finds his house trashed and ransacked, and he loses faith in his mother and his father to be able to protect him. Or the father who loses his faith that he can protect his family. Or a wife who loses faith that her family's safe. And it was just, I was so fucking depressed and shamed of myself that I had caused that kind of pain. And I started to learn that the road back is forgiveness. And I'm like, but how? How do I get forgiveness from people that I don't even know, right? Like, I don't know how. And he had told me, write it down. Write letters. Write letters to these people and ask for forgiveness. Just like you want to be forgiven for the things that you've done, forgive those that have done you wrong, because forgiveness is never for the other person, it's for you. And it frees you from the shame, from the guilt. So I started to write these letters, and I at first it was, he had told me, write these letters, send them over, and I'll help you work through it. And so the first time I wrote these letters, he sends them back like, man, you're just making a bunch of excuses. Everything in this letter is, I was hurt, I was abused, I was raped, so I didn't know how to act, I was this, I was that, I did this, I did that, and so because of that, I fucked you over. Sent it back. He's, no, man, that's not an apology, you're making excuses, right? And so I rewrote the letters and sent them back, rewrote them, sent them back, rewrote them, sent them back. And I forget how long I spent writing these letters, but it got to the point where I poured my soul into this, and you never did anything to me, right? You did not deserve this. The things that I've done, if I could take it back, I would. If I could change it, I would. And, just know that I live with that for the rest of my life. I don't know if you got over it or not, but in my mind and in my heart, it doesn't matter if you did or not. I still caused that pain. And I will live the rest of my life trying to inspire people to be better, to let go of their pain, to let go of their trauma, and to walk a better path in life, to try to make up for the shit that I've done, right? To try to make things right. I will live the absolute best, most inspiring life I can. I don't know if it'll work. I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but I will try, and I will try, and I will try in my quest for forgiveness. And then when I finally got it, rip it up, put it in the toilet and flush it and let it go. Put it out to the universe. Let God, Buddha, Allah, Odin, whatever you call it, let the universe carry it to those people and let it go. You cannot change it. It's happened. You can't do anything about it except live a better life. And I started to learn that kindness and love and compassion and empathy are the magic sauce to healing, to living a better life, to forgiving, and then using the power of your voice. I read these letters out loud to myself so much. I just spoke it out into the universe. And all of a sudden I felt lighter, right? I felt, I forgave myself. And while it doesn't change what happened, it freed me. It freed me from this little cell. I started to find hope and happiness. I started to write essays, and I started to submit them to the prison, to the local library, the prison library for, they do spoken word competitions. And I won one for this poem that I wrote called From Monstrous to Magnanimous. And I won, and the ADW came down to my cell and he said, I wanted to let you know that you won this competition, but you can't have the prize because you're in the hole and you're not allowed to have it. Just wanted you to know. And I started to get in really good with the activities coordinator, and he got me a connection with the local library, and they started to allow me to rent books from the local library. And I didn't even know what they were. I just said something along the lines of a John C. Maxwell or a Viktor Frankl or, one of these self-help books. And I just started to absorb them. I started to read them, and I started to write and read and write and read and write. And one day, the cell opens up and the ADW's there and they want to see you. So I come down, and he said, all your writings, we've been seeing all the writings and been seeing your demeanor, and we see a really profound change that's taken place in you. And this is 17 months in or whatever. And he said, we're implementing a new program in the Michigan Department of Corrections called Thinking for a Change. And we want inmates to teach it. If you'll study the course material, come down and propose to me how you would run the class, we'll let you out of the hole to teach it. I'm like, what? Absolutely. Let's go, right? Like, let's go. I've been in here long enough. I don't want to be in here anymore. So I go back, I study the material, and I come down and I propose how I would teach it. And sure as shit, here they come. Like, we're going to let you out of the hole. And I'm like, all right, this is epic. I'm getting out. And then the day comes, they bring me my bag. This is 19 months into this 5-year term in the hole. And I get out, and as I'm leaving, Mallory Bay and we had talked about it a bunch, but as we leave, I get down there, I say, hey, Mallory, I hate that you call me white boy, man. It's racist, it's disrespectful, it's mean. And he said, all right, white boy, go change the world, man. So I left. And as they take me down, I think we're going to general population to go teach this class. And they take me to one block, which is protective custody. And I'm like, is this a joke? Like, I'm a really well-known gangbanger. Like, you're going to get me killed. I can't go into protective custody. And he's like, it's your decision. You can go back to the hole. And I thought, what would Mallory say? you know what? And this is my moment. This is my moment to prove to myself that I have this profound change, that what I said holds weight and I mean it. And so I went in, I said, all right, let's go. And I go in there, in my first class, there's 30 men. 28 of them are pedophiles. And I'm like, this is just the sickest kind of joke, right? Like, I'm going to teach pedophiles, thinking for a change. This is fun. And so I saw the opportunity to show them what happens to your victims. I am a living example of what happens to the kids that you rape, that you molest, that you violate. This is what they become. Some of them become me. Not all of them, some of them. And I taught the class, and it went really well for them, I imagine. I don't know. I didn't keep tabs on them. But when it was over, I just felt like I had a purpose. Like I've got something, and I have found a meaning for my suffering. And I'm going to go do my absolute best to teach people. And then I left protective custody. And that's when shit got bad, because I had to leave the gang. And I knew that I had to. And when I got to the yard, I pulled off the leader there and I said, let's take a walk. Told him I'm out, right? Like, I'm not doing this anymore. And he said, do you know it doesn't work that way? Well, I am. And for the next year, I was stabbed twice. I was beaten. I have holes in my head because I was beaten with locks in the chow hall. I was jumped constantly. And I refused. I didn't want to engage. I didn't want to be violent. I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to take it. Eventually they'll stop. They just wouldn't stop. And eventually, some bad stuff went down. And then they left me alone. I talk about it a little bit more in the book, I think, but I never want to glorify violence. I don't want to talk about violence. I don't like to talk about the things that happened in prison, because that's irrelevant, right? It's more about the healing and the growing and the perseverance and how you can make it through. That you only lose when you quit, right? When you give in, that's when you lose. I spent the rest of my time building with guys, talking, teaching classes, learning, growing. I learned yoga. We did yoga on the yard. And in 2016, I was given a parole, and I never thought it would happen. And I remember when I walked out, there's actually a picture of it. My ex-wife took a picture. When I walked out, my knees collapsed, and I fell. And I just kissed the pavement because I never thought I was going to make it. And I knew in my heart what I wanted to do. Like, this is 2016, and I'm ready to go give the world the best that I can give and start to make my life mean something. And then you get smacked with reality, right? Like, I'm a caveman living in a world that has not stopped because my life stopped. And it wasn't long after that I realized that this relationship wasn't going to work. We divorced amicably. I was working demolition, and I knew that I wanted more. So I got into music, and manifestation is a real thing. If you believe that you can do something, you can do it. I have never believed that my felonies were ever going to hold me back, even though they told me the best you could hope for is a supervisor position at a factory or something. I never believed that. You can do anything that you want to do regardless of where you've come from. And so I got into music and very quickly got signed to a label and started touring. I mean, we're doing shows in Virginia and Pennsylvania, and all of a sudden I go from this cell to a stage with tons of people. And I lost sight of, this is the purpose that Mallory instilled in me, what I need to do, and I need to go do that. Instead, I got swept up in the lights of life, right? Of women and music and popularity. And for the first time in my life, I was a popular guy, right? Like, I had fans, and I let everybody in. I'd been alone my whole life, so I just opened the floodgates and let everybody in, and I surrounded myself with everybody. And there are some really shitty people in this world. And you kind of have to have boundaries. And if you don't have those boundaries, they're gonna kick it in. And when COVID hit, I realized I'm not happy in the relationship. I have a new son. He's 2 years old, and his mother is just a very miserable and unhappy person, and I'm not happy in the relationship that I'm in. So I'm going to own my life, and I'm going to leave. I started YouTubing, and I had a really successful YouTube channel with 50,000 subs, and I started podcasting, and I started talking about positivity and hope. And that's where my passion started to hit. And I like, yes, this is what my life is for. I want to inspire people. And when I left her, everything went to chaos. And I'm looking at it like life cannot be doing this, right? Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I lost everything. She destroyed my car. She destroyed everything that I owned. I was homeless. I had nothing but the money in my bank account, and thankfully a friend of mine from another big band down in Florida called and bought me a plane ticket and said, get out of there. And I flew down there, and I said, you know what? You only lose when you quit. I'm going back, and I'm going to rebuild my life. And that's when I really hit my stride, and I realized, like, I need to do something bigger with my life. I need to inspire people. I want to show you what I've learned and how you can just get up every time. No matter how many times you get knocked down, you can get up and keep going. And I did. And I moved out to California. I met my wife on a podcast. I was a guest on her podcast. We came out here. We wrote my book. She said, you need to put your life in a book, and you will inspire people and you will change the world. And I believe that. I believe in my heart that we can change the world if we use our voice to put things on display that have caused us pain and trauma, and use our life and our stories as examples of what you can endure and how you can overcome it. It's through forgiveness, it's through love, it's through kindness, it's through compassion, and it's through bravery to use our voice, to tell our stories, to tell our truth. That's how we heal the world. That's how you heal yourself, and that's how you inspire other people to heal. And so that's where I'm at in my life now. The last few years have just been so freeing and so full, and I get messages on a daily basis from parents, from sisters, from kids that you've inspired me, right? Like, I go into juvenile halls, and I go to jails, and I go to middle schools, and I go to high schools, and you see the impact that you have, and I finally feel like I've given a meaning to the suffering, right? And it's just the most fulfilling thing in the world. And I know there's still naysayers that come in and they're like, oh yeah, but you know, I was raped and molested too, and I didn't go catch 30 felonies, good for you, man. Good for you. You know what? I'm going to continue on my path. I can't change what's happened in the past, but I can control what happens in the future. And that's where I'm at in my life, man. That's what I'm trying to do now is just help as many as possible.
It's a beautiful story, Sonny.
Thanks, man.
Thank you for sharing it.
Thank you for allowing me to share it.
All right. Thank you. When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.